Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you, whoever that was. Woo! How about Saturday, huh? I like Saturdays. This is our first ever in-person community day here at MGBCE, or the artist formerly known as MGBCE, as I like to say. We rebranded our conference this year to My Green Building Conference and Expo because we really believe that everyone has a seat in the table as we look at how to green our buildings, the places that we live, work, play. And so everyone needs to be part of the conversation. We can't do that unless we have a day where we're really working to engage the community and making sure that they know how they can be part of the process and how they can green their own homes and their own lifestyles. Thank you. Is that better? Woo! All right. So I just want to thank everyone for taking the time and for all the work you do on a day-to-day basis and for being part of our community. I'm going to try to keep this pretty quick here because it is a Saturday. Things should move faster on Saturdays. I don't know, slow. I do want to say thank you to all of our sponsors. We couldn't have put on this event without their support. It's really meaningful for us, not just today, but throughout the year. I want to say thank you to all of our exhibitors and community partners who've taken the time to be here with us today. You are an important part of our community. And I also want to say thank you to our annual sponsors. Events, I always say, are just a moment in time. It's about what happens between the events that really makes the difference. And that's where our annual sponsors really help us create the action that we want to see out in our community. And I want to remind everyone that this is our moment. For those of us who work in this space, we're starting to see now some of the progress that we've been waiting, in some cases, decades to really see. This starts with the movement around building decarbonization. People are starting to come up to me now and say, hey, did you know that buildings are 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions? And I say, yeah, we've been saying that for a very long time. But we're starting to see some real movement around issues like electrification. California has a critical role to play around this for the country. We're seeing really the battle play out around electrification in our local communities. Northern California has had a lot more policy passed around this. Here in Southern California, we're working to catch up, but California really leads the country in electrifying our homes and our businesses. This is really important for us to continue to push this work. And embodied carbon and materials, even just 3 or 4 years ago, I don't think we could have imagined how much of a difference it would make to start having transparency and around the materials that we use to build. We passed legislation here in California called the Buy Clean California Act that's really done a lot to really lead the market and make sure that we understand how people are manufacturing the products that go into our buildings and making sure that they're healthier for the environment and healthier for us. And then corporate ESG, we're really starting to see our corporate partners wake up to the fact that they need to care about sustainability. They need to care about the environment. It's not just about branding. They're starting to say, wait, this is actually going to really impact my bottom line if I don't start to change how I do business. And we're only going to see that increase. The guidance around climate risk disclosures is really starting to send some tremors through the larger companies that they need to be really real about how they approach this. And for the green building community, they need us. We've been doing this work for a long time. They're trying to figure it out. And they can't do that without taking a portfolio approach to their buildings, a portfolio approach to the work they do. And we're the ones who help make that happen for them. So I really want to encourage all of you to be empowered. And it's not just about our industry, it's about our city. LA is a microcosm of the world. We have such a diverse community here of the largest populations outside of their home country of like 60 different ethnicities. We have the largest manufacturing base in the country, the largest logistics hub in the country. We have the opportunity here to solve a lot of those problems that exist everywhere, but also exist here, whether that's water scarcity or air pollution. And so some of the work we're doing, we're working on a resilience hub in Boyle Heights right now, which is really meant to be a model for the city, for resilience hubs throughout the city. There's a small picture here you probably can't see, but we're gonna be doing a clean energy mural on that building to really depict what can the future look like for Boyle Heights. We're also working on certifications around wildfire defense and extreme heat for contractors, for landscapers. How can we empower our tradespeople, the people that are doing work every day, on how to make an impact on the projects they're working on? And then social equity, we need to have everyone be part of this work. It's about developing the workforce of the future. We're hearing from everyone now that there's not enough people out there to do the work we need to do to green our buildings, to move things forward. Well, that's on all of us. We need to bring everyone into this work with us. We can't do it ourselves, and it needs to be reflective of what our city really looks like. And that comes back to empowering our communities and education. If we can't educate folks about the part they play in this process, they can't be there with us. So just quickly, who are we as an organization? We're the U.S. Green Building Council Los Angeles. We're an independent nonprofit, so we're really focused on leveraging the built environment as an entry point to transform Southern California into a more sustainable region for all. But at the end of the day, we're all about people. We're a member-based organization, and you here, you are who we are. And so it's important that we move this work forward together, but we really need to empower you to make a bigger impact in the work you do. And our goal is to be the largest, most impactful membership-based sustainability organization here in Southern California. I want to say thank you to my team. You probably woke up this morning feeling as tired as I did and was wondering why the hell did we decide to do a second day of this conference? But everyone's really worked so hard. I want to say specifically thank you to Becky, who's really driven herself crazy and us only slightly crazy to make it happen. And then I want to say thank you to Farah as well, and Nikita, and really everyone on the team who's really gone above and beyond. We really come together for these events, and we're a small but mighty team, and so it takes everyone really pitching in. And when our community comes together in the last year, we had almost 200 events with almost 14,000 attendees. We had over 1,800 volunteers. We have 10 programs that we're running now out in the market to make an impact. And I would encourage all of you that you can be engaged. You can become a member. You can join a committee that cares about the same things that you do. You can be a mentor. Anyone can be a mentor as long as you're willing to take the time to help someone on their journey. Volunteer, support an initiative, get training for yourself, build yourself. And so I invite you to become a member and join our community. It really supports the work that we do. We have a number of committees I won't go through here, but we do have a Green Homes Committee that we launched a couple months ago, really to help people in their homes. We want to really engage the real estate, the residential real estate market, the brokers that are out there, the interior designers. We want to get everyone part of this movement because there's a real lack of education and awareness on how to green our homes. And that's part of what this day is about today. And we've been investing in our communities. Last year, we had 1,000 students go through our sustainability fundamentals education, which we just launched really last year. Today, we actually have some of the kits that we've secured through a grant this year. They're hands-on projects for kids to build around design-based learning so they can learn how to implement sustainability in their lives. We have a Green Building Corps, which we have a number of our members here today, where we're helping to place people in full-time jobs in this industry. And so I just want to encourage everyone that this is about investing here locally. I'm not going to go through all of our programs at length. We have a green affordable housing program that we've been working on in the Eastern San Fernando Valley, installing EV chargers, heat pump technology. We also got a grant to install indoor air quality monitors and water quality testing. To get this kind of building level data around indoor air quality and water quality, it's very rare. It doesn't exist in most of our buildings. We really want to shine a light on what's happening in our communities of need. And I also want to call out our Net Zero Accelerator and Innovation. We've had over 50 companies in this program for us over the last 3 years. A number of companies of our new cohort are here today exhibiting. You can also find them online. We have the innovation today that we need to make the difference and to move things forward, but we need to help those companies scale. We need to help figure out how those business models can work, but we have the technology, we have the capability to do that. And then that comes back to people. Technology means nothing, innovation means nothing unless there's people who know how to use it and who care and the business model makes sense. We've had over 1,500 graduates now for our Green Janitors Education Program. We're actually up over 400 graduates for our Native Landscapers class, which we just launched last year with our partners at the Theodore Payne Foundation, which are here today. I don't know if there's anyone here in the room from the Theodore Payne Foundation, but they're an awesome partner. But we need this kind of niche training that's really helping people move things forward. And we also need to continue to see that in the market. We launched an electrified equipment initiative this year. We have some electric equipment here from Volvo. Just in me working to try and get electric equipment here for this conference, I see what the problem is. We could only get one company to provide electric equipment here, even though there was more than a handful that were interested. They just can't figure out how to get this equipment here and available. We need to make sure that everyone can get that to reduce air pollution and reduce noise pollution in our communities where projects are happening. I already mentioned our wildfire defense programming. We're launching that later this summer and into the fall. You can find all of our educational content on our talent portal on our website, so I encourage you to check that out. And then our Green Schools Initiative, I just want to make sure everyone knows you can sign up your school, your friend's school. This is free and open to anyone. You can find it on our website. We can do virtual sessions for kids or do them in person around sustainability fundamentals, K through 12. So if you're interested, please find this on our website. You can sign up your school, tell your teachers about it. Anyone can be involved there. And then we gave awards out yesterday for a number of projects. We have a tool on our website called EcoMap LA, where you can check out buildings throughout the region. We have over 1,500 buildings on there. You can see videos, pictures, and learn about what's happening to green buildings right here in your local community. So I would encourage you, if you feel inspired, please support our small but mighty nonprofit organization. Anything you can spare really helps us continue to do this work. And I want to thank you for your time. That's probably the most important thing. And with that, I would like to introduce our keynote this morning. Yes, welcome, Jonathan Scott. So I want to make sure you all know that Jonathan Scott is not just a pretty face. This man's got he's got real chops. He not only understands the work that we're doing, but he understands what we need to do to lead it and do more of it going forward. And he's doing it right now himself. I'm going to let him talk more about his journey. But I'm really proud that he's gotten involved here in our community here locally. And I think he can make a real difference for us. So I appreciate your support and thank you for taking the time with us this morning.
I don't know what happened to the smoke machine and pyrotechnics that I asked for, but I really appreciate that all of the money raised today goes toward my talent fee for being here. No, I like how one person applauded. Horrible. I have a really loud theater voice, but because there are people so far back, I'll use this. I have no fancy slides like Ben had when he was going through it, but I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey. And one of the things that, by the way, before we even start, has anyone seen the documentary that I did called Jonathan Scott's Power Trip? Everybody else, get out. So I'm going to talk about my journey a little bit and why I got involved in green building, and it stems all the way back. But my documentary came out last year on PBS, and the response was huge. It was a 3-year journey of my life. I fell into the renewable energy, world that we're living in, and discovered this, secret war that was being waged against renewable energy by very specific people. And it just didn't smell right. So I dug in, I hired a researcher, I then eventually expanded, hired a team, went across the country and interviewed people from every walk of life, everywhere from politicians in DC to single mom, trying to raise her kid, but deciding whether or not to cancel extracurricular activities for her kids so she could pay for her power bill, to the Navajo Nation, where they're doing incredible things with some of their utility work, Appalachia, where there were people, and in North Carolina as well, where people were deciding whether or not they were going to pay for their medicine or they were going to pay for their light bill. So this to me struck a chord, and I discovered that there's something wrong right now in how we look at what I feel should be basic human needs, essential needs, so that families can live healthy and happy. And so I took this 3-year journey, I made it into a film, and it has now sparked a lot of the work that I'm doing, working with the White House and the Department of Commerce and the Department of Energy to try and find solutions that make a lot of these technologies so they're not just for rich people. That's the biggest problem I find right now, is there's a lot of really great stuff. There's a lot of really great technology, and as Ben said earlier, the solutions already exist, but people are usually a little adverse to change. Change is hard for some people, but also I get it when somebody says to me, I watched the documentary, I tried putting solar on my house, and where I was, it was way too expensive, it didn't make sense, so I think solar's BS. And I said to them, I'm like, you're right, because depending on where you live, the value that you get back from something like solar can be 10 times higher or 10 times lower, depending on the local legislation. So things shouldn't be so complicated. Anyway, I digress. You'll discover I'm a chatty Cathy. I was telling some of you guys earlier, I'm a chatty Cathy, so I'll go down tangents. And also, I don't mind, by the way, which I was told earlier, don't ask, don't put out to ask for questions unless you really want to answer. Like, I'm totally cool. I'm here, I'm yours. At the end of this, ask me some questions. Does the plaid shirt match the underwear? I'll tell you, I don't care. So, by the way, Drew as well is very much involved in renewable initiatives and in eco-friendly initiatives. The reason he's not here today is because he's an asshole. So he's actually almost about to have a baby. So they're on baby lockdown. He's assembling furniture. It's very exciting. Okay, so folks, I would like to start way back. I grew up on a ranch in Canada. So because I am Canadian, I'm naturally awesome. Don't throw me out. I'm also American. We were raised on the ranch to be stewards of the environment. So we had a horse ranch. We were right on the edge of the Rocky Mountains, and my parents, taught us that, you got to make sure that you don't, leave a place with a worse impact on it when you arrive. So taking care of the animals, taking care of nature. And that kind of followed me through into our later years when I was renovating our house in Las Vegas. We were doing a show about it called Property Brothers at Home. And part of that journey, I thought I wanted to put solar on my roof. I thought it would be really great, good for the environment, reduce my carbon footprint. So I jumped into the exciting journey of putting solar. Wow, there's a bird in here. Will it happen? Damn it. Could have had a Snow White moment right there. Anyway, so I said to myself, I wanted to do this. I think it would be good for the environment. I didn't know at that point a lot about solar, but years and years before, I had powered my house off of wind. There was a program where I was living where you could opt to pay a little bit more and use wind-generated energy instead of natural gas or coal-generated electricity. I did that for a while, but I thought, all right, now I want to do it myself. So I got the system. I worked with a company called Sunrun. I also at that point didn't know the difference between owning a system and leasing a system, but I just wanted to do what was good by the environment. So I put a system in, got it in pretty fast, and it then took almost 5 months at that time for the utility in Nevada to flick the switch and allow me to use the power. And I was getting so annoyed because all of the equipment was there. We'd done all the work. I'd spent all the money, and I couldn't use the system. And I was trying to figure out what it was. Finally, I got the system turned on, and a matter of weeks after that, solar was killed in Nevada. The legislation had changed. They took away net metering, everything, all the solar companies went out of business. And I was like, what the bleep is going on here? So something didn't smell right. And that's when I started to dig in to figure out what was going on. And I discovered that there was this sort of secret war going on between some fossil fuel companies and renewable energy companies. And I am the type of guy, I was a debater in college, and I said, if something didn't smell right to me, I am the guy that's like a pit bull. I will just jump on that and I will not let go until I figure out what's going on. So I hired a researcher, started looking into it, and I discovered that Nevada was by no means the worst. There were states all over the country. Every state had their own problems. Some states had really great solutions that were happening. And that embarked me on this journey that opened my eyes to what was really going on. Most people just flick a switch and expect that their light goes on, and they don't actually think about everything else that goes on. I was horrified to discover that there, for example, with coal power plants, there's a waste byproduct called coal ash. It is highly toxic. And there were some utilities, like in North Carolina, where they were burying this coal ash. It was leaching into surrounding lakes, and it was giving everybody cancer in those areas. And then that became a huge outrage. People discovered what was happening. The state ended up stepping in at that time, required the utility to clean it up. That utility had been making billions in profit every single year, yet this was going to cost $5 billion, and they gave them 30 years to clean it up. And they allowed them to charge the consumer for that cleanup. And I was like, come again? And unfortunately, that's the problem with our system. Is it's not just a matter of what's right, what's wrong, it's also a matter of who writes the laws. It's so important that you guys take an interest in not only doing something in your own homes or in your office buildings that's going to be a net positive for the environment, but it's also important that you get involved so that we can change policy so that we're moving in the right direction. Now, don't get me wrong. Not all utilities are the same. Not all utilities are made the same. There are some utilities who are advocates for the green energy movement. It is also, I'm not someone who thinks we need to flick a switch today and everything turns green immediately, and that's it's not realistic. I believe that there is a way for this to be good for the environment, good for people, and good for business. And we're seeing that already. In fact, when I started my documentary, there were still 26 coal power plants slated to be built in the US or to come online in the US, which is insane because it is the dirtiest form of energy that exists. And it's also the least profitable form of energy to produce. In the 3 years that it took for us to finish the documentary, and it took stuff like the documentary, like what you guys are doing here, people using their voices, every single one of those 26 projects was abandoned or shut down. So it means there's a lot. I mean, there are still a lot of coal power plants already operating and you know, and whatnot. But it's a movement in the right direction. And I think that's one thing to remember. It can be very easy to focus on the doom and the gloom of what's happening, but there is also a lot of really exciting stuff. We talked about how I had no idea coal ash was even an issue, and that's something to deal with. Another thing I didn't realize, and it made sense, is a lot of these high polluting power projects or power plants are near communities that don't have the political might or the financial might to fight back. So you'll see that low-income communities usually suffer the most when it comes to respiratory problems, human health issues, because they're near a lot of these power plants. There are also other things that we're discovering now, new research that shows indoor air quality, how your indoor air quality can be 100 times worse than outdoor air quality, depending on whether you have fossil fuel burning cooking appliances or, you know, other, you know, we filmed our shows all over the country, and there are a lot of places where they're still heating their homes with oil in big tanks under their houses. I don't want to live on an atom bomb. Let's get those out of the house. So I'm very excited to announce, which we haven't publicly announced, but I am doing the first fully decarbonized home on HGTV right now for Brother versus Brother. We're filming it just over here in Westchester. And this home has the coolest, the latest technology that anybody could imagine. And I think that's my role. One of the most important things for me is to use my platform and use my audience and influence to showcase to people that this isn't a partisan issue. This isn't about, you know, something that I want to show people, oh, but it's not a reality for you. This is stuff that actually exists. It'll make your life easier. And my philosophy is that your home should make your life easier. People deserve to live in a happy, healthy home. Part of that is making sure that we're not, you know, inhaling fumes from, you know, from gas when we're cooking. Most people, I don't know about you guys, but most people don't turn on their vent hoods when they're cooking. So you're basically pumping all of those emissions right into your home. It's not a good thing. Part of it is how we generate our energy. Part of it is also how we retain our energy, you know, having efficient homes, you know, insulating properly. So all of these things, that's what I'm working on to try and make sure people understand what is possible and to make sure that we can find ways so that when your appliance breaks down, the green appliance is cost competitive and has all those other healthy benefits. I don't know how much you guys know about technology when it comes to green technology, but most people I talk to have no idea what the hell a heat pump is. Most people have no idea what induction is. They think it's the same as those electric coil cooktops that we've used for so long. Like, no, totally different technology. What I believe the kitchen of the future is going to be, most homes, I'd say 90% of homes are lacking prep space and storage space. So my thought is, as I mean, I've done over 570 episodes of our shows, and you know, we kind of have an idea of what people want in their homes. I believe the kitchen of the future will have induction, and for a lot of homes, it'll be induction that is underneath the stone, so that you can use your island for kids' homework, for activities, for whatever you want. But just for that 5% of the day when you're cooking, you don't have to change anything. You can cook right through the stone with your pots, and then you put it away and use it as workspace. So that's what I've done. We just did the Snoop Dogg episode of Celebrity IOU with that, and Snoop was like, holy shit, I've never seen anything like this. You know, all these things. I think it's fun for people to realize that, you know, this is stuff that will add to the function and the style of your home, but it's also something that the more people adopt, the more the prices come down. And so we manufacture 10,500 products for the home, believe it or not. Of those products, we try and always make sure that there is a sustainability story, that there's something that's actually going to make life better. You know, it's working. So thank you to everybody who gives me feedback, our fans. We get 500,000 messages a week each on social media. I'm a little more popular than Drew, but, and it's, yeah, she agrees. So don't tell Drew I said that. So, you know, that feedback is great because we're filming our shows year round. And so we introduce these storylines into our shows to showcase new products. I'll talk with an engineer. The cool thing too is, you know, on HGTV, Drew and I comprise 17.1% of all programming on that network. So in reruns and our new shows and all of that, that's a pretty big impact. people will come to us with their ideas for a new product or a new service or something that would really be great. And we're very limited as to who we'll actually work with. But when I see technologies that I think are really cool for water conservation, companies like Rainstick and stuff like that. Like, I think there's really brilliant technologies that are coming out there. Span with the electrical panels that's running an AI tells you, when an appliance is going to fail because it knows it's drawing more energy. Also for resilience, when you see what happened in Texas with people losing power in their homes, and that can be catastrophic. Well, the home of the future, if something happened and you lost the power in your home and you have an EV, which we're all moving toward having EVs eventually, you could go and supercharge your EV, come back and power your whole home, because these new smart panels can do that. And so all of these things are very exciting, and it's helping make sure that we have those fail safes in place. I co-wrote an ebook with Al Gore all about energy so people could understand the energy journey. And I think, again, all of these steps, working with you guys, speaking to you here today, I think it's important so people realize we're all on the same page. We all want the same thing at the end of the day. There's no need to vilify anybody because they're still driving a gas-powered vehicle, or maybe they still have a gas cooking element in their home. I don't believe in vilifying people. I believe in having a dialogue. And I think, most people would look at the benefits of the technologies we put in, the way we insulate homes, the way we're building homes today, and they would say, that's really great. Maybe I can't afford it right now, but what's the path to get there? So if there's one thing I could encourage you to do today, because everyone who's sitting here right now, I assume you're already converted. I don't like preaching to the choir. I like preaching to people who've never even thought about singing in a choir. And so if I encourage anybody to do one thing today, it would be, don't pick a fight with somebody who hasn't given energy a second thought, who hasn't given sustainability a second thought. Have a dialogue. And it might be a dialogue that takes 6 months. It might be a dialogue that takes a year. Keep it casual. We're moving in the right direction. The costs are coming down. We're showcasing those technologies and things like in our magazine and on our shows. But that's all it takes. It's going to be good for business. We need our utility partners to be a part of this journey, but we also need to make sure that we stop polarizing this and that we make it something where we can actually learn from each other. And it's not always going to work. There are some times where I talk to people where it turns out they tried something and it didn't work for them, or maybe they didn't have the right installer who worked on it with them. But the more we can educate each other, the better off we'll be. So that's my little pitch to you guys, and that's a little bit about my journey that brings me here today. And I thought, I don't know how many minutes I have left, but I thought I have an opportunity to answer a few questions. If anybody does have a question, I kind of am a random warehouse of knowledge when it comes to sustainability and all things eco-friendly. Any questions at all from anybody? Don't be shy. I'm not shy. Yeah. The solar panel tariff issue. So one of the meetings that I've been taking with the White House is we're trying to find a way that we can repatriate a lot of manufacturing. And the issue that we're having is most of our manufacturing happens overseas right now. So we have two things. Part of it is a cost issue sometimes when tariffs are implemented that weren't part of the original calculation as to whether or not we're going to manufacture. The other is availability. Chips is the big thing, trying to find a way that we can repatriate manufacturing of chips to America. So that literally everything, every home, your devices, your laptop, that camera, everything has chips in it. So I'm not an expert when it comes to the tariffs that are implemented, but I do know that one of the biggest conversations we've been having, because we are a very large manufacturer of products for the home space, is how we can kind of protect ourselves against something like that shifts the economy. Because obviously, as soon as the tariffs are implemented, we see a huge drop in how many people adopt the technologies. The one other thing I'll say about solar panels and tariffs, which is going to be important, you'll see state by state it's happening, where the utilities are challenging net metering and trying to change it or take away net metering. It is not a very simple conversation. It's a very complicated conversation. There are things that happen right now that are legitimately not fair for the utilities and the usage. There are also things that happen that are legitimately not fair for the consumer. Some states have moved in a direction that has actually made it more unfair and has sort of pushed the utility partner aside even more. Most jurisdictions have pushed the consumer's needs out of the way, which is not fair. So I think what we need to consider moving forward with solar is if you're producing energy, you need to keep the energy in your home and not expect that you're going to be able to sell it back to the grid. That's going to probably be the future of what happens. The problem is the storage technology right now is so expensive that it's not realistic for a lot of people. And then there are a lot of places too where they restrict how much storage you can have, which also, if you're investing in it, I feel like you should be able to store whatever you want. So very complicated issue, but yeah, all of these things, you'll see the growth chart and the adoption of some of these green technologies. And then as soon as something like that hits, you see a real level off or a dip. I'd love to just see the trends continue. The last thing I'll say on that is one of the ways we're trying to counter that is make it so that the process to actually get a system approved is not so complicated. So it's not using so many man hours or anybody hours. So that is an important thing too, to make sure we're simplifying the process and it's not intentionally complicated like they currently have it. I don't know if that even answered any of your question, but sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So for anybody who didn't hear the back, who's asking about, as we're moving toward electrification, what about all of the greenhouse gas emissions that are involved in the manufacturing of all of these products and the elements that are involved, the minerals and whatnot, in things like batteries and whatnot. So one thing to keep in mind is this manufacturing already exists for non-green vehicles, for non-green products, for non-green things. And a lot of that manufacturing is dirty. The shift into a vehicle that doesn't have that's at one end, that's the manufacturing end of the spectrum. Then the user, the consumer end of the spectrum is also burning fossil fuels for the use of these vehicles and whatnot. So in reality, by changing it so we're manufacturing a product that is green in the end use is a net positive. However, there is going to be a waste issue, a major waste issue, which I think is something we're going to have to start to tackle, because every device you have, every computer, cell phone, there are harsh chemicals in there, toxic elements that we need to figure out a better way to clean that up on the other side. So I do predict that there's going to be we need to rethink. Also, our recycling programs are not as effective as people would like to think they are. So how do we actually start to have some programs that work? I think the only way to tackle that, and so we're also trying to lead it with our company on the packaging side and the manufacturing side. All of our products have a pretty rigorous standard they have to meet, but there are some circumstances where there's just no other affordable option right now for either on the manufacturing side or the packaging side. We're trying to find that solution so then we can go to all our partners and say, start using this. That being said, a lot of times it can price you out of the market and a lot of retailers won't carry those products. On the industrial side, when we're manufacturing stuff, that is going to be a harder pill to swallow, to try and find ways where they can clean up manufacturing completely. I think it can happen and there can be definitely a positive impact. The one thing that we're also not really calculating into the conversation right now is they're constantly developing new carbon capture technologies, and some of them are proving to be really great. If we can implement clean manufacturing and carbon capture technologies, we'll actually find ourselves way ahead of the game. But again, this is all new, and so some of this, and this is as well why I say it's not great to vilify people who are still using technologies that are not 100% green. I am totally okay vilifying people who are grossly negligent in their manufacturing and dumping chemicals and whatnot. But I think that most responsible manufacturers, if they're moving in that direction, once the technology is proven and we find what it is, you're going to see a massive shift because it will be good for business. It's really the cost thing right now, which is why a lot of companies aren't fully adopting it, is it's not 100% proven and the cost is so high. Yeah, one more question we have. Yes. For future. Yeah. So her question is, why are you the good-looking property brother? And I agree. It's something I've been. Drew covers most of his face with his beard, No, she asked, do we see anything that, in the future that will help the situation when it comes to tenant waste, residential waste? So one thing, just so a lot of people, I don't know if you know, everyone goes through so much work. I don't know if you've ever had this where you get something from the grocery store and you're like, the heck is a 5 triangle, or is it a, what is it? What does this go? No, I can't do this one. This has got grease. It's so complicated. I'm a fairly smart Mensa inductee, and I have no friggin' clue. And if I'm in Santa Monica versus LA, I have no idea. The problem is most of the stuff that goes into our recycling does not get recycled. In fact, a lot of it gets ground up and it's used for ground cover to keep a lot of emissions down in the landfill. So what we're saying is it has to, that was the other part of my other question too. It has to happen at the manufacturing level. We need to mandate that our manufacturers cannot even send products to the home unless they're recyclable or compostable. So that also is to do with your question, is we have to mandate at the manufacturing level that we have these certain standards so that it trickles down to everything else that we're doing. As far as waste management within the home, there are some really cool, products that come out. There's one, and I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the company. It looks like, a washing machine, like it's a big unit, and you throw your plastic into it. It instantly washes it, identifies it, tells you if it is recyclable, chops it all up and puts it into a cube so that you can actually sell that back to a recycling depot. Problem is, it's a very large unit, and so I don't see it likely being adopted to every home, but I think it would be great if every apartment building had one, or a community had one, or something like that. So there are cool technologies that are making that easier. Again, it all comes back to our philosophy that your home should make your life easier. And if you have to spend 20 minutes trying to figure out if this is a recyclable plastic, do I take the cap off of it? That's not making anybody's life easier. So it's going to come from the manufacturing side and policy in order to make sure that we make everybody's life a little bit easier. And with that, I will say thank you so much for having me. And I encourage you, reach out on social media, grab the ebook that I wrote, or watch the documentary Power Trip. These are all things that I'm very passionate about. I've committed myself to, working with organizations as well that I think are also helping move that messaging forward. But at the end of the day, just make sure you're going to get a lot more out of it if you try and strike up a conversation instead of pick a fight with somebody about it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. A small token of our appreciation. You get them for the whole family if you want. I have a big weird head, so plus you have great hair. We don't want to mess that up. Great job. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Jonathan Scott. Thank you for your leadership and his vision. It's happening, right? We're seeing this start to happen out here in the world. And it's just great. It's just great to hear. So thank you.